Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population and with little or no meaningful engagement leaves a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say. A major disruption looms over Nigeria's already strained healthcare system as nurses across the country commence a 7-day warning strike, signaling the potential for a nationwide shutdown of hospitals. The industrial action led by the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives comes after the nurses accused the federal government of failing to address long-standing issues including poor remuneration, harsh working conditions, delayed promotions, and lack of adequate equipment and staffing. Their decision to shut or to down tools, despite ongoing appeals for dialogue, reflects growing frustration within the health sector and raises urgent questions about the government's commitment to frontline healthcare workers. As hospitals brace for reduced capacity, the strike underscores the deepening crisis in Nigeria's public health infrastructure and the urgent need for lasting solutions. It's another wonderful episode on your favorite primetime show, Ways. My name remains Osayiwa Mesale, and today we are discussing, or our focus would be to unpack some of the challenges within the healthcare sector, focusing on nurses, what they are facing amidst the strike. Now, please remember, Ways is all about you. You are the wine way, so be a part of the conversation every single day. You can head on to our YouTube channel. It's at Official Upgrade TV. Hit the subscribe button, like, share. Invite your families and friends to watch as we follow the show right now. Now, when I open the phone lines, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. As always, let me allow you ponder on our quote for the day. It says, "For over 40 years, we have been patient with them. They subjected us to no provision of gloves or equipment. And for the past 40 years, nurses have not embarked on any strike nation. Any strike rather than that's from the national chairman of the Nigerian Association of Nurses and Midwives. His name is Morakinyo, or yeah, real one. All right, so we'll delve into all of this much later. First, let me run off on a break. When I come back, I'll let you in on my news interest for the day. Stay with me. All right, thanks for staying tuned. I'm going to start with the chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Women Affairs and Social Development, Kafilat Ogbara, has called on all well-meaning Nigerians to support a bill seeking to create 182 additional legislative seats exclusively for women in Nigeria. According to her, the poor representation of women in elective positions, despite their huge number, does not tell well for the country, mouthing inclusive governance, or the country mouthing inclusive governance. Now, the lawmaker also stated or noted that the proposed legislation is not merely a legislative effort, but a courageous effort aimed at building a more inclusive democracy. She added that the bill proposes one additional seat per state, including the Federal Capital Territory, to be reserved for women in both chambers for the National Assembly, and it also recommends 3 additional seats reserved for women in each state's houses of assembly. I don't think so. I do not think so. I don't know. You know what? We are going to look for a guest to come discuss this, but I do not think this is going to work. We already complaining that the system is over bloated, for goodness sake. How do we create 182 extra seats? That's a lot. So we are talking the lawmakers, the state houses, both state and national. Then we're talking, what's it called, their aides. We're talking new offices. Come on, it's not going to work. I don't know about you, except if lawmaking now becomes, what's it called, a part-time job, where these people are just paid maybe like a very tiny stipend that you are serving the nation, and you're not going to be earning money from it. Because we're already complaining that the system is bloated. I don't know how this will work. I think I would need to find a guest to talk about this, but I don't subscribe to this. What should happen is women should be a lot more bracing to challenge the existing status quo. They should also do a lot more work. I saw a video that was, beautifully captured by, I think her name is Adiola, yeah, of the work that Senator Natasha Akpoti has been doing in her constituency. That, for me, she would not need too many conversations, too many canvassing to be able to win a second election. Come on. You need to see the kind of technology she's deploying in terms of training, right? I have said this thing several times. You cannot be training while somebody is giving clay pot as empowerment. She was giving laptops. She was giving DJI drones with the, the VR lenses. Come on. By the time they are trained in that, they can now intentionally look out for opportunities where they can earn money. Give them skills that are relevant for the now, that they can be here and earning FX based on the skills that they're learning. So we're talking cybersecurity, we're talking business analytics, we're talking project management, we're talking product management, we're talking media skills, your graphics designer, your 3D animators, all of those things. Those are real empowerment. So if women really want to make a mark, let us start making the impact. Because in the end, it is the people that are supposed to vote for you. So I don't understand why you're asking for extra seat. I'm sorry, I do not buy this. I'll leave it there. So I'll move on to my next story. Former governor of Lagos State and the ex-minister of Works, Babatunde Raji Fashola, has advocated the preservation of Lagos history to avoid distortion and promote values, particularly as the discussion on street naming in Lagos continues to generate a lot of controversy. So Fashola referenced the works in the digital archives of the University of Glasgow, noting that the past works of the university's staff and students played a role in influencing the historical development in other countries, even in the area of landmarks. So those of us who drive through streets such as Ladipo Oluwole Street in Ikeja will probably now understand and contextualize the contributions of such man and why it was considered such a high honor to immortalize him by naming the street in his memory. I think that's a fantastic idea. So, again, and this is where the conversation around this renaming that has been happening in Lagos State is a lot of things happened, right, that made certain names, I'm not talking about all the names now, I'm talking about certain names. So what is important is, why was it even named in the first place, and what, milestone, so if there are, and this is where we really must be intentional about telling our stories, because if history, if there are documentaries, there are short clips, videos that people can always watch to remind ourselves what these people did, that, gave them this kinds of immortalization, then it makes a lot of sense to say, okay, you know what? And you can now not just wake up and change those names. I don't know if you get the drift, because there's so much controversies. I don't want to be part of the people adding my voice to Igbo or no Igbo, Yoruba or no Igbo. No, that's not it. why was it the name there in the first place? If we understand the why, then it will be easier for you to understand whether that name should be taken off or should be left the way it is. All right, so I'll move on to my final story. So more than 2 million Nigerian electricity consumers were overbilled by distribution companies. Somebody had to say it in 2024. A development which has led to credit adjustment totaling 105, over 105 billion naira amid rising estimated bills and violations of market order. Now, the figure contained in the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission 2024 yearly report show a troubling rise in overbilling following the controversial implementation of the Band A tariff, a rate regime that remains burdensome for most end users, with collection efficiency remaining poor, as discos rely more on subsidies from the federal government and consumers' reclassification into Band A. Consumers continue to agitate for a more decisive and time-bound approach to metering in Nigeria, as sector stakeholders condemn the continued reliance on estimated billing and the vulnerability it creates for millions of unmetered households. I mean, even for us that have meter, we need to go and check that thing. For us that have meter, we need to go and check it. But I'm really hoping that, I hope this story's, what's his name, Wisdom Chap at Energy Outlook, he would look into it, because we really must understand it. So now that they have discovered that this money is there, what's going to happen to it? Yeah, okay, so I'm hearing, okay, credit into those accounts. So how do we vet it? How do we check it? Because sometimes I just feel like at some point in our office here, we were consuming 100K in 3 days. It didn't make any sense. Like, how? And this is after we are shutting down almost everything. The ACs are not working, and yet we're getting as high as that, in 3 days, in 4 days. So now we managed to extend it to like, I think about 10 days now. It doesn't make any sense. All right, so we'll take a break. When we come back, let's discuss of course, the ongoing strike with the nurses, and we're asking what are the challenges that, that is warranting even the strike in the first place. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria's energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we'll analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.
All right, nurses form the backbone of any healthcare system, serving as the critical link between patients and the broader medical infrastructure. In Nigeria, however, the nursing profession is grappling with deep-rooted challenges that have culminated into recurring industrial action. The ongoing strikes by nurses and other healthcare workers are not merely protests for higher wages. They are a reflection of systemic neglect, inadequate working conditions, and, of course, policy failures that have plagued the sector for decades. Amidst a fragile healthcare system and rising patient demand, Nigerian nurses are caught between professional duty and personal survival. So joining us to discuss this today is Odumosu Olorutoba. He's the secretary, state secretary, National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives, Lagos State Council. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, so I just wanted to quickly touch on a bit of history because nursing strike in Nigeria trace, their roots or their origins to the broader wave of labor unrest that followed the end of the Nigerian Civil War, right? It's not today's transaction, 1967 to 1970, right? As the country was rebuilding, nurses alongside other public sector workers began to demand for better working conditions, right? And this association, right, that it was formed in 1977 and emerged a key voice for nursing profession. And if you check what had happened in history, right, early protests were often in response to poor pay, lack of recognition, and unregulated work environment. So between that time and now, has anything truly changed within the sector or the profession? Let me put it there.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting perspective. I think the issues have largely remained the same, fundamentally the same. Given that even as we speak, we still talk about the issues of remuneration, about staff shortages and things like that. Of course, the profession itself has not remained stagnant all those years. It has been able to get a professional status through the award of the IAP Award of 1981, for example. Today, we have so many nurses who are academically accomplished, who are professors, PhD holders, and the high percentage of nurses are graduate. I mean, that was not the situation back in the 70s, where many of the training was still mostly technical. But now, many nurses receive their training and education within the university environment. But the sad reality then is that even with this investment in higher academic attainment and things like that, and building of relevant professional skills by nurses, the regulation has not in any way been able to keep track with what nurses have been able to accomplish. I think that's why it's in that sense that I see that the issues have almost remained fundamentally the same. Of course, given against the background of what is also happening in the country. I mean, it's not the health sector is not isolated from the general issues of the country, of underfunding and things like that. When you take the health sector, for example, looking at budgetary allocation, which of course will tell you what are the commitments of government in that particular budgetary year. For 2025, the federal government, for example, has budgeted only about 4.7% of our budget. I mean, this is against the Abuja declaration that we always try to talk about, which is 15%. And this is against the backdrop of so many years of negligence that already we should even be thinking of doing so much more. So, but in fact, that's when you are looking at the figure, when you begin to disaggregate what that 4.1% or 1.9 trillion is about comes to, then you begin to also further appreciate the challenges that presents. That some of the issues we are seeing, unrest, strike after strike action, and things like that, are only a result and the natural symptom of that kind of level of commitment to the health sector. We continue to present very embarrassing and disturbing health indices, within the country. But like I said, that's is all that is happening is also a symptom of fundamental issues that are wrong, both with the health sector and with the country. But more, of course, more specifically, the fact that for us as nurses, we constitute more than 51%, more than 50% of any health work work on, so that anything that is done to not invest in nurses, to overwork them, to what can not regulate nurses properly. Of course, it's guaranteed to see, you are guaranteed to see a healthcare sector that will be in perpetual crisis at the comatose state. So I think that's the point to make in that regard.
Okay, so let's go straight into some of the issues that, as you've rightly listed, First of all, they say that there is poor remuneration and unpaid salary. So when we're talking unpaid salary, how many months' salaries are we looking at? And when you say poor remuneration, because I want us to be very specific on figures on this show today, so it gives an idea of what people can just kind of paint a picture as to why this is even happening. Because one of the core issues that is fueling strikes among nurses in Nigeria is inadequate pay, right? So you have a lot of long hours of working. There's a lot of high risk in your job. Imagine talking about not providing gloves, right? And you're able to, these are like, you are supposed to be first, you are the person that goes, at first contact with any patient that comes into the hospital, be it the nurse that is taking the vital signs and all of that, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. So there are so many things that puts you at risk, right? And many nurses receive salaries that do not even reflect the level of responsibility or expertise, right? That they have, and in some states, delayed unpaid salaries, it then further kind of exacerbates the situation and leaving nurses financially strained and demoralized, right? So tell me, when you say unpaid salary, how many months are we looking at? And how much, when you say that you are not adequately remunerated, there's poor remuneration, what are we looking at the current figures? So if I get off fresh from nursing school and I take up a job, what is my salary? And, maybe at what level, what is my salary? And, what is this unpaid salary looking like? Are we talking 1 year salary being owed, 6 months? What is it?
What changes you are going to be able to capture some of the key challenges? I think the first thing to put in perspective is the fact that this is the nationwide strike action. If we're talking about unpaid salaries, that might not cut across, that might not be the reality, broad reality of all nurses across the country. So, but I mean, to the issue of remuneration, you see a situation where people are earning way less than 100,000 in the nursing room, and you understand that in every instance, labor will always move in direction of capital. These are people who have skills that are, internationally sought after. So, and that there are so many other earning opportunities that they have to petition to the country. So, in a situation where someone working outside the shores of the country would very easily earn your annual salary in a month, you can understand that level of disparity. So that if someone with a registered nurse certification comes in and gets about 100,000 every month, just barely, or 120,000, barely above the national minimum wage, you can begin to actually, then you understand the enormous responsibility that this person has to shoulder. You have also rightly made the point that nurses are frontline health workers, often the first people to come in contact with patients. I mean, it comes to mind the case of the nurse that was lost during Ebola. I mean, that gives you some insight into the dangers that might be lurking in the background. So that if you now hand so poorly that the admission does not even commensurate with both the skill and the risk involved in the work. So it tells you the kind of situation that nurses find themselves in. And I mean, the other question is the fact that within the health, within the public sector, you still have a bit of structure. So many nurses work within the private sector where the condition of work is even much more precarious and worse off. So we people are earning, some people can be offered even about the minimum wage as a salary. So I mean, those are some of the challenges. And you continue to see in the news that people continue to leave the country in the thousands. What that also tells you is that those who are staying behind are now having increased workload, more burnout. So that staying, in fact, it increases your risk of all sorts of chronic illnesses as a result of the workload without any commensurate increase
in the
in the
pay.
remuneration
Yeah,
or
because I
anything.
understand that, the more we have issues around brain drain and workforce shortage, it will definitely impact on the already overburdened, what's it called, situation.
Yeah,
But you see, when you're
exactly.
talking about minimum wage and you're talking about poorly paid, way, way, way below minimum wage and all of that, the conversation around remuneration in Nigeria as a whole in general, it's not unique to nurses, right? Everybody in Nigeria, if given an opportunity, will demand for better pay because it's just so don't you think this is a Nigerian problem? It's not so much of health workers. So I get the part that because the health sector is a bit sensitive, right? It's important that we pay attention to the health sector as it is. However, the issue around poor remuneration, right, that that always comes up in these conversations around strikes is not unique to just nurses alone. Every sector right now, if you check what the pay grade is and you compare it with your counterparts in other parts of the world, it is not like it is inconsequential compared to what other people are earning. So why is it a problem for nurses?
I mean, you maybe to take it off from the point you have made is that health sector is a very peculiar sector. Any country that is serious about its development, any government that wants to fulfill its mandate, you need to look at what exactly is the level of commitment to health and education. Because those are the key drivers of development. And so that's why, I mean, in education, you talk about 26% UNESCO, whatever recommendation. In health sector, you talk about the 15% declaration and all this. So that, and I've also rightly made the point that you're talking about nurses as making more than half of the health sector. So, and I think another point to make is that maybe other people are not leaving the country as much. So you might be able to keep people. But when it comes to nursing and the health sector, because other countries value the life of their citizens, there are these skills high international demand. So that you are going to see a situation where you do not face these issues squarely. The health system might actually collapse. I mean, we have a situation where quackery is thriving and people are just dying needlessly. And this is not a situation where you make error or someone dies tomorrow, you can go and wake them up. And that's why I said that the health sector, you must understand the peculiarity of that.
So it's not only health sector. Let me just tell you now. The tech industry, you think nurses are running away? Tech is worse. A lot of, and again, because they know that once they go into other parts of the world, it is so easy for them to be able to just, get quick jobs and all of that. A lot of, if you notice, even with your banks, at some point we're having a lot of downtime service issue. It was because they were losing a lot of hands in droves. But I hear you and I completely understand. Health is not something to joke around with. And that's why in other serious economies, right, they actually pay attention to the quality of life of their health workers in terms of both, remuneration, the kind of perks and benefits they get and all of those things. So it is always very juicy. They use that, to call people from all over the world to get the best hands, in their own societies. So let's go to politics because everything is political, right? Would you say that this problem, right, do you see the seriousness of this administration? Because, Nigeria, we're always quick to say it was not in my administration that it was promised. Because I 100% understand. And that was why it was important that I brought that history to say that, see, nursing strike has been on since 1877 or 1977, right? It's been there. It's not a today thing, right? But you see, but with every administration, you will see the seriousness as to which the government is approaching this. Because these things, the nursing, I want to know how many times were warning letters sent to the government. What was their response like, and why did the warning strike commence despite, the plea and all of that? What is the main reason for the strike?
I think the first point to make is that our own association is a very responsible association, and even those strike actions, have been held so much in the past. In recent history, it has been very rare for you to, in fact, our association has not gone on a strike of its own about in the last 2 decades. So, that's outside strikes called by Joesu when the association used to be in full in that particular structure. So, that should tell you the kind of restraint that the association has for even this set of issues that are being pursued now. The association issued ultimatum and things like that last year. There were meetings, there were promises, there were committees, and there were also, and the association will always have follow-up letters, follow up with letters to these quarters. But the reason why we are where we are today is because of the lack of government response. For this particular strike, a 15 days ultimatum was given, which meant that the government even had ample opportunity to call the union to a roundtable discussion and give reasonable concessions that can, have averted. That's to also speak to the premium that the government places on the health of citizens. It's something that, like I said, our association is not an irresponsible association. We take these things very seriously. We understand the implications of this action on the health sector. This is a national strike that is, essentially shutting down the whole public health sector and infrastructure in the country. It's not something we take lightly at all. Also, but you ordinarily expect that the government receiving that kind of thing, it will also call you to meeting immediately or the following day. So, but here we have the only engagement that we had was one that was had just few hours to the expiration of that ultimatum. Which shows you the level of commitment and seriousness.
So, are you trying to say, Odumosu, are you trying to tell me that even when the strike commenced today, the federal government has still not reached out, to find, a quick, mitigation process to at least even stop the strike and listen to your demands?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that it was just few hours to the strike action commencing, which was yesterday, was when the Federal Ministry of Labour convened a meeting, which of course they don't even have, all the key people that you expect to be there, because the Minister of Health was not at that meeting. Which shows that kind of meeting could not have achieved any reasonable concession that can make the association citizens to call off the strike action. But to also state that this ultimatum was a 15-day ultimatum, giving the government ample time to engage the union. So, but nothing was done in all that period, up until the time that we are about to commence this strike action. So, that should tell you that the government needs to be a bit more serious on the part. And I've tried to emphasize that the way to understand and to also even see if a government is serious about any sector is how much money they are voting to that sector. So that the decision was, we must look at the problems both in terms of the realities of nurses, but also the broader perspective, in the sense that if you have a less than 5% budget for health, there's very little that's going to happen in improving health for people in that kind of country. So, and this is a sector that's been neglected for so many years. So that, what is happening is also a reflection of the broader commitment of
government to the people.
To the health sector.
Yeah, and even to the people actually, because the public health sector is mainly for the mass. So it means that they don't really, there's no intentionality in ensuring that the health and safety measures, that would help their citizens, is in place. But let me take some comments, that would help their citizens, is in place. But let me take some comments, not afford medical tourism as our politicians or or does that test our strength? Welcome. Thanks for staying tuned now. If you just tuned in, the focus tonight is unpacking the challenges nurses are facing in Nigeria amidst the strike. Now, please let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation, send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. You can also leave us your messages on YouTube. As you see, we'll read your messages as well. Our phone lines are now open. The number is 07025007749 or 0701424240. Let's hear what you have to say. So before we went on a break, I told you I really loved what the YouTube commenter said about medical tourism. I was just going to ask, right? First of all, Odumosu, what do you think would happen, since the government officials, they rarely do use those hospitals. The hospitals, that these nurses are the strike is ongoing on. They are more of government hospitals. Am I correct? So it means private hospitals are still functioning, and it means nurses are still working in private sectors, right? It's not like it is a general thing. It's just within the public sector. How many people, that are of some level of economic stability or status really are patronizing the federal or the state government or local government, health centers?
Yes, of course. It's unfortunate that we've come from the history where, even cases like usage at the height of its glory, we were able to treat very high-profile international clients and things like that. And then we've come to a situation where even the average middle class person with a bit of disposable income does not ordinarily want to seek healthcare access through public channels. And I think that this, unfortunately, is a deliberate thing on the part of government. Because what has happened is that the public health sector has seen consistent defunding and underfunding. It has seen its vision where we are. And most people eventually only go to some of those teaching hospitals where they see that the kind of intervention they need is
the cases
something
are
that
complicated, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, specialized. But ordinarily, you see that people do not want to.
But of course, can I throw this back? Sorry to cut you to butt in, right? Can I throw this back to you? Because again, there's been a lot of allegations as well that even when, probably free drugs are provided, free medical supplies and all of that, there have also been strong allegations as to how the government healthcare workers, probably siphon these things or take them to their private practices. Because again, I don't know about nurses. Tell me about nurses if they do this, but I know that doctors that work in the government hospitals, they also have their private practices. I don't know if the same for nurses. So if they are also having those kinds of, two-faced approach to the work, are they not also part of the challenge and why it doesn't seem the system is improving?
I would only be able to speak to the situation with nurses. First of all, only a handful of nurses actually own hospitals. And the function of nurses in the health facilities does not require them to, they're not in the pharmacy, they're not cashiers, they don't handle this. And theirs is to care for the patient. So it's almost impossible to find nurses in this kind of situation we describe. Of course, I'm not saying that the health sector is a place where people do not try to cut corners and things like that. But that is, we would say, is beside the point, because the government always has its own leverage, has its laws to checkmate this if it exists, and to rein in people, anybody who has done this, so that if there's any seriousness on the part of government, to correct any anomaly. It has all the instruments on its side to do that. So what the situation within the sector has is not what the health workers themselves have brought on themselves. It's a situation where the policymakers, politicians have brought on poor workers who, of course, ordinarily just have the passion to care for people, but have not found themselves in a situation where it's difficult for them to render that care that they really want to give us. I mean, you see a situation where these politicians do not use these health facilities. It should be something that should be of concern and shame, actually, for our elites and for our political actors that presidents of the country are dying in foreign hospitals, are receiving care in foreign hospitals, and we can't, I mean, collectively as an elite, can't even create one, if not one or two, where healthcare can be guaranteed. I mean, this is coming after we have even experienced a pandemic where you even know that there's a possibility of lockdown within the country. But you can see I don't know what to describe it as, the way our elite actually think that you still do not see it as important, even if you do not value the lives of the vast majority of Nigerians. At least you should ordinarily want to prioritize your own self-interest. But I
Absolutely.
mean, our situation is
But
that
it doesn't seem
our
so.
elite are that they don't even think about it. Seems as a prestigious thing for you to rather
To
than
go
to see it
abroad.
as a thing of power. Elite see it as something of pride to say that you are receiving care in London, in India, in
Absolutely, a very big shame for us as a people. Let me take a few comments. I mean, it's just coming in a lot on YouTube. It says it's quite unfortunate the way our government is handling our health sector just because they all have access to healthcare at diaspora. This is disheartening. And this was from Charles Alabi. Olurotimi Awojide says federal government should honor the court judgment in favor of the nurses to show respect for the rule of laws. I would like for you to touch on that a little bit. Then Folashade Etefia says, if the federal government couldn't see reason for a roundtable discussion within 15 days ultimatum, you can imagine the level of neglect the association has been facing despite these challenges being faced. Dalhatu Musa says, justice to us Nigerian nurses, pay us well so we can work well, or else we jackpot to where we are valued. Solaja Okoyemi comes back to say nurses are number one patient advocate. And Folashade also comes back to say nurses give account and proper documentation or documentations for whatever is being donated to patients, clients, and that was that was in their care. Most of it goes through hospital pharmacy department. Okay, that's also adding to the allegations. Then Oluwafemi comes to say the WHO says that a nurse to 4 patients, but here in Nigeria, it's a nurse to about 30 patients. I even think it's going to be about 100 at this rate, right? Because I feel like, the number of people, brain drain that has happened within the medical sector is quite alarming. But let's touch on this rule of law about the federal government that says that there's a court judgment. What is that court judgment about? And that was supposed to be in favor of the nurses. And, what is it about and why is it not being implemented?
Yeah, so I think as regards to the court judgment, even very certain that the association had to even put the court to secure that judgment again, because it's essentially reaffirming the awards of the 1981 IEP award, which was gazetted in 1983, which of course pronounced the profession as autonomous and sui generis and should not be subject to the control of by any other profession except as part of an organic code. I mean, that's to say the point that the unfortunate image that people have of nurses as people who are because of so many quacks and so many poor portrayal of profession by unfortunately the media as people who serve under people and things like that. So, but I mean that's one of the key things is affirming that autonomous and professional status for nurses, which also meant that the scheme of service for nurses was supposed to be unified, which also meant that a directorate of nursing was supposed to exist at the Federal Ministry of Health and other places. I mean, you consider the aberration we have today, which the nursing, the nursing as a profession has no directorate. Remember the fact that I said that nurses are the largest professional group within the health sector, but they are the ones who are without a directorate, and you have a nursing director having to report essentially to another director, which ordinarily is not something that should exist according to public service rules. And these are some of the things that the association had to go back to court to reaffirm, and was again by the giving that judgment in favor of us by the National Industrial Court in January 2012. But I mean, since 2012, I see it's struggling to get the implementation. The only thing that the government has acceded to is the unified scheme of service, which unfortunately since 2016 has still not even been gazetted. I mean, all this just tells you a story of lack of seriousness, lack of.
So, but I want to ask a question, and this is directly to you. What is how powerful is the voice of this association in Nigeria? Because, you know, one thing that I have come to study with the government is that when it comes to advocacy and when it comes to protest or strikes, right? If your voice is strong, they don't have a choice but to call for a meeting. And the fact that it seems like how can you have a meeting and the Minister for Health is in there? So of what use is the meeting? You know, because the people that are supposed to be the key stakeholders to take the decisions or take it to the presidency level so that something will be done with immediate effect, they are not in that meeting. Then does that not tell you that they do not regard the voice of these association, the NANNM? Is that not a pointer?
Yeah, of course. It's we are a strong association and we continue to remain one. But it's just a pointer to the premium they place on the health of Nigerians. Like I said, now that the association has shut down and withdrawn its members, you go to all the teaching of everywhere shut down. All the patients have to go. So it's not a situation of the fact that the association of nurses don't have structural power. In fact, it's a situation where they have taken the fact that the association has remained very reasonable, very trying to see that in trying to fight for these things, ordinary people and mass of Nigerians should not suffer. But the federal government does not seem to share that perspective, unfortunately.
Okay, quickly, because we're running out of time. Now, it is 7 days, right? Warning strike. After 7 days and the government doesn't do anything, what is going to happen?
For us, of course, we're a union, a democratically run union. We come back to our own organ meetings to reassess the situation, and the leadership of the association, the National Executive Council, which is the organ of the association that has power to call this kind of actions, will review what the solution is and decide on what will be the next line of action.
Okay.
All right. Has been called for Friday. So
that's fair enough. So on a final note, right? On a final note, what are we losing for every day that this strike is happening? What are we projecting to be the impact of this 7-day strike? Should it continue?
I hate to say it, but it's costing us human lives. I spoke about the fact that we have very embarrassing maternal mortality indexes and things like that. And of course, these things will only get worse when the critical people who are supposed to save lives are not there to perform those life-saving interventions that they're supposed to do. And we're going to continue to count the loss of these things. Unfortunately, human lives. So it's something that is very sad, but that's unfortunately is the situation.
Very, very disappointing. So how do we engage the Nigerian? Because I feel like if the young people in Nigeria also are part of this, call for better remuneration and better working conditions and infrastructure for nurses, I'm sure that, it will have more weight, because I just feel like, the body alone talking about it might not be as effective. Are there any means of the association also, what's it called, calling on Nigerians? Is there any platform where, we can start to call on Nigerians to be part of it so that the government will listen? Because sometimes that's the only language they understand when there is massive, cry.
Yes, I think even leading up to the strike action, there's been a lot of advocacy and engagement on social media platforms to drum up awareness and support towards this. And I think one of the key things that I think Nigerians must really advocate for is the fact that there must be increased budgetary allocation across board. That we must ensure that we put pressure on the government to turn around the situation where over 70% of healthcare expenditure is still out of pocket. And we don't have, many people are left without any insurance coverage. Healthcare is very expensive. So in a situation, we're talking about those who even come to hospital, because one of the challenges that we have is that people eventually present late, because you have to think about, you can imagine the economic situation. People have to choose between eating or taking medications and things like that. So, and that's why in the whole discussion, I've tried to also emphasize some of the foundational issues that have made this. It is not a situation where that the country cannot mobilize enough resources to pay health workers properly and be a bit competitive, but that the fundamentals remain unresolved. We have a huge out-of-pocket situation where there's no health
So
insurance.
health insurance should become a priority in this country.
Yes, you see a situation where the budgetary allocation is extremely low compared to. So those are some of the things that present this kind of challenge. And for our own situation, you see a situation where nurses are not being recognized, they are not being remunerated, because it's not just remuneration, it's also the fact that, like you said, in terms of voice, nurses are not being put in key policy decisions within the health sector, despite the level of educational attainment that our colleagues have gotten in recent times. So that despite that number, you see that numerical strength and communication is not reflected in board appointments, so that sometimes it's also a situation where the federal government has inadvertently created an echo chamber, which is just one professional group that just keeps sharing the
all the time. I think that will be corrected. But here on our platform, unfortunately, we ran out of time. But here on our platform, we'll try as much as possible to keep bringing this conversation to the fore. Because honestly, I want to say thank you to all the nurses that are watching, and thank you to you as well. Because the truth is, our lives are truly in your hands. At some point, it's no longer a thing of the doctors. It's actually the nurses. Most times nurses are the ones that take care of us when we go to the hospital. It is only when the issue that probably needs, and even when the doctor comes, it's still the nurse that will do everything that the doctor instructs. So our lives are technically in your hands. So thank you so much. But we'll definitely keep this conversation going. And we'd love to also follow up on let us be following up on what is going on day 1, day 2, day 3. And let's see whether the government will truly, be intentional about changing the situation. But thank you for your time. Let me take a lot of comments. Oh my goodness, we have too many. So let me start with Olu for Lawe. Says, okay, I think I've taken that already. For Lola, Fonola says, nurses work tirelessly in this country and they are not treating them well. Unwa for Messi says, nurse actually deserves better. We are professionals, for crying out loud. Imagine being paid stipends, no salary structure. The strike is long overdue. Somebody says again, nurses are not second-class health workers. We deserve better. And she talks about the strike continuing. Shegun says it's disappointing that the government continues to neglect nurses who risk their lives daily without real investment in their welfare. Our healthcare system will keep suffering. Deborah says, Oyedele Deborah, she says, federal government, please treat nurses well. Our country is a land that is full of honey and milk. Nurses are the ones staying with patients 24 hours. They deserve better, I think she says, treatment. Says, why will our government wait till we get to this point? The government is partial. They always rate doctors far more above others in the health sector. all animals are equal in the animal kingdom. And it says our next Minister of Health should be a nurse so that our health system will be restructured. I really don't think whether it is about your health minister being a nurse. I think it is just about the human being himself or herself. Because in the end, it is if you understand, you know, that you have a goal and there's a vision and there's something that you're pursuing, then you will run by it, whether you are in the profession or not. I am sure if I am appointed Minister for Health, even though I am not a professional, I know that the lives of every Nigerian matter. So I don't need to be a professional to have the heart of, service and the heart of every Nigerian life in my heart. All right, so please, if you missed our quote, it says, for over 40 years, we have been patient with them. They have subjected us to no provision of gloves or equipment, and for the past 40 years, nurses have not embarked on any strike. And this was from the national chairman of the association. Thank you again to everyone that dropped your comment, and thank you to our guests. You did an amazing job with this conversation. We'll keep following it. See you guys tomorrow, live at 8 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, battles a growing youthful population, and with little or no meaningful engagement, lives a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say.